Kira Voss moved through the great hall of Stonefang Citadel with practiced invisibility. She was a whisper of gray linen, her head bowed, her presence utterly forgettable. This was her greatest weapon, the thing her Omega status afforded her. No one looked at an Omega. No one saw the keen intelligence in her downcast eyes, the coiled strength in her slender frame, or the chilling purpose that drove her every soft footstep. Her scent was muted, rain-washed stone and crushed mint, easily overpowered by the rich aromas filling the hall. Perfect camouflage. For 2 days she had been Anya, a kitchen maid displaced from a northern holding, quiet and diligent. And for 2 days she had studied her target. Alpha King Marcus Stone sat at the high table, a figure of immense power carved from granite and authority. He presided over the evening meal with heavy stillness, his presence a palpable weight in the room. His dark hair was threaded with silver at the temples, though he was perhaps 35 at most. The lines on his face spoke of battles fought and burdens carried. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, missed nothing. Kira felt their sweep across the hall like a physical touch. My wolf. The thought was bitter, edged with old grief. A dead thing, a silent absence that had existed since she was 7 years old. She had spent years trying to call it forth, desperate to shift, only to be met with crushing silence. Eventually she stopped trying and assumed she was truly broken, wolfless, which made her worthless even among Omegas. This drove her to develop other skills, eventually being recruited by the Blackwood Syndicate, who valued her lack of wolf presence as perfect camouflage. Her mission was simple, paid for with a coffer of gold that would allow her to disappear forever. Eliminate the Alpha King. The client was anonymous, but their motive was clear. Destabilize the strongest kingdom in the region. And Kira was the best at what she did, precisely because she was an Omega without a wolf. An Alpha or even a Beta assassin would have their scent and presence challenged immediately. But her? She was less than nothing. She emptied goblets, cleared trenchers, refilled carafes, her path bringing her within feet of the king. She noted the way he favored his left side, the subtle tension in his shoulders, the way his personal guards stood ever watchful behind him. She mapped his routines, the late hours in his study, the pre-dawn patrols, the solitary moments in the royal garden. She learned the shift changes, the loose floorboard outside his chambers, the way moonlight slanted through his window just after midnight. Her plan was nearly complete. All she needed was the perfect moment. Tonight, a visiting dignitary was being honored. The feasting would last late, the wine would flow freely, and the king would be distracted. Afterwards, he would retreat to his study to review treaty documents, dismissing his guards for a rare hour of privacy. That would be her window. The blade hidden in her boot was steel, with a thin silver alloy coating, its edge a razor's whisper. The silver caused her mild discomfort, a tingling burn she had learned to ignore. Her palms bore faint calluses and old scars from where prolonged contact had caused minor burns when she first learned to wield it. The real danger was if the blade entered her bloodstream. Silver was toxic to shifters, but she was always careful. It would be quick, clean. Another ghost, leaving another corpse in her wake. She felt no remorse, no fear. This was her trade. Emotion was a liability she had carved out of herself long ago. As she moved to clear the king's table, her fingers brushed the heavy oak. A strange current shot up her arm. Her breath hitched. Something deep inside her, in the place where her wolf should have been, stirred with sudden, sharp longing. Recognition. It was impossible. Her wolf was dead, had been silent for 15 years. Kira ruthlessly suppressed the feeling. It was nerves, nothing more. She kept her eyes down, but she could feel his gaze on her. It wasn't the dismissive glance of a superior to a servant. It was focused, aware. A shiver traced down her spine. She risked a fleeting glance up through her lashes. King Marcus was watching her, his expression unreadable, a deep furrow between his brows. His scent, a powerful blend of pine forest, winter air, and something uniquely his, washed over her. The dead space inside her where her wolf should be suddenly ached with a whimper she hadn't heard in 15 years, soft and pathetic and desperately yearning. Mine. The word echoed in her skull, a primal possessive claim that came from the broken remnants of what she'd thought was gone forever. Kira recoiled internally, her cold professionalism warring with the sudden, violent uprising of an instinct she didn't know she still possessed. She finished her task, her movements stiff, and retreated to the shadows of the kitchens, her heart hammering for the first time in years. The plan was still in motion. She would not allow this momentary weakness to deter her. Tonight, the Alpha King would die. Marcus Stone had felt her the moment she entered his citadel 2 days ago. A faint, intriguing scent of mint and rain-washed stone that cut through the noise of the court. It called to his wolf, a quiet hum beneath the surface of his consciousness. It was Omega, that much was clear. But it held a hidden depth, a resilience that didn't match the usual downtrodden servant scent. His wolf had been restless ever since, pacing the confines of his mind, drawn to that scent in a way he couldn't explain. On the second day, his head beta, Fenrir, had come to him with concerns. The broad-shouldered man with a scar bisecting his eyebrow reported in a low voice. "My king, the new servant, Anya from the Northern Holding. Something is not right about her. She moves like a predator, not a maid. She has calluses inconsistent with kitchen work. I've observed her examining guard rotations." Marcus had felt his wolf surge with inexplicable protective instinct rather than alarm. "Watch her closely," he had ordered, "but do not approach or alarm her. Report to me directly." He watched her himself. He saw the way she moved, not with the shuffling gait of a beaten-down servant, but with a predator's silent grace. He saw the way her eyes, when she thought no one was looking, scanned rooms, noting exits, guard positions, weaknesses. He saw the intelligence in her carefully neutral expression, the contained danger in her slender frame. He knew. He didn't know why or who had sent her, but he knew she was here to kill him. And yet, she hesitated. Day after day she had opportunities. A moment alone in a corridor, a chance to slip something into his wine. But she never took them. She only watched, her focus on him so intense it was almost a physical touch. He found himself looking for her in the crowded halls, his day feeling incomplete until he caught her scent on the air. Tonight, when she had brushed past his chair, the briefest contact sent a jolt through him, a shock of pure recognition that made his wolf roar in triumph. Mate. The word exploded in his mind and everything clicked into place. Her hesitation, his fascination, the undeniable pull that had grown between them. She was his other half, the one the moon goddess had destined for him, and she had come to him with a silver blade and death in her eyes. The irony was so bitter it was almost laughable. An Omega mate was controversial enough, but an Omega assassin? The moon goddess had a dark sense of humor. He made his decision quickly. After the dignitary departed and the hall emptied, he dismissed his personal guards with a quiet command. "I will review the treaty documents alone tonight. Post yourselves outside, but do not enter unless I call." Fenrir's scarred face showed concern. "My king, the threat will reveal itself tonight," Marcus said calmly. "Trust me, old friend. This is something I must face alone." He went to his study and spread treaty documents across his desk, but he also left other papers visible, false documents detailing his nightly routine, his guard schedules, his vulnerabilities. He positioned them where someone entering through the hidden servants' entrance would see them. Then he sat at his desk, his back deliberately to that entrance, and waited. He knew she would come. He had felt her wolf stir when they touched, had seen the brief flash of confusion and longing in her eyes before she fled. She was his mate, and tonight she would try to kill him, and he would offer her a different path. If she refused, if her purpose was stronger than the bond, then perhaps he was meant to die by her hand. But his wolf would not allow it. His wolf was howling its claim, its need, its absolute refusal to let its mate come to harm, or to harm him. The kitchens were a chaotic symphony of clattering pots and hissing steam. Kira found a quiet alcove and took a steadying breath. The silver-coated blade in her boot felt heavier now, colder. The king's scent still clung to her senses, a phantom touch she couldn't shake. The stirring where her wolf had been was growing, a frantic, desperate energy building within her. It was a sensation she had never experienced, not since childhood. Her wolf had been silent since she was 7, since the night Margrave at the Whitestone Omega House had punished her for letting it surface to protect another child. She could still remember the silver collar burning her neck for 2 years, the pain every time her terrified wolf tried to emerge, until finally it retreated so deep she thought it had died. Now something was waking, something was clawing at the inside of her mind, howling a single silent word. Mate. The concept was so foreign, so utterly impossible, that she wanted to dismiss it as hallucination. Mates were for the properly bred, for the alphas and betas whose wolves were strong enough to recognize their other half. An omega, a broken stray with a dead wolf like her, finding a mate? And not just any mate, but the alpha king himself? It was a cruel joke. Her life had been one of hard edges and cold realities. She was a tool, an instrument of death. She had no place for such fantasies. She methodically reviewed her plan, forcing cold logic to overlay the emotional chaos. The dignitary's toast had concluded. The king would retreat to his study. The guards would be posted outside the main door, but she knew the secondary entrance, a small door hidden behind a tapestry depicting a great white wolf. It was used by servants to deliver late-night correspondence and was never guarded. She would slip in, silence him, and be out through the gardens before anyone knew he was dead. Simple, efficient. She repeated the steps, a mantra against the rising tide of the thing inside her screaming in distress. She watched the hours tick by, her senses preternaturally sharp. She saw the visiting dignitary finally depart, his retinue a noisy clatter of armor and formal goodbyes. She saw King Marcus incline his head, his face a mask of regal fatigue. She saw him turn toward the wing housing his private chambers, his 2 beta guards falling into step behind him. This was it. Her body moved with fluid grace, a shadow detaching from deeper shadows. She moved through the castle's hidden arteries, her soft-soled boots making no sound. The tapestry depicting the great white wolf loomed before her. She slipped behind it, her fingers finding the cool iron of the hidden latch. The door opened with a barely audible click. The study was silent, lit only by low burning embers in the grand fireplace. The air was thick with his scent, and the stirring inside her drank it in like a starved creature finally finding water. It made her dizzy, disoriented. Focus, she commanded herself. The silver-coated blade was in her hand now, the metal causing familiar tingling burn against her palm. He was at his desk, his back to her, head bowed over parchments. His broad shoulders were slumped, the iron control he projected in public momentarily gone. In this quiet moment, he looked less like a king and more like a man drowning in responsibility. A flicker of something, pity, empathy, pricked at her. She crushed it. It was a weakness she could not afford. She took a silent step forward, then another. The floorboards were silent beneath her feet. She was 10 feet away. 5. Her arm rose, the silver tip aimed for the vulnerable spot between his shoulder blades, a direct path to the heart. Her breath was held, her muscles tensed for the final, lethal lunge. It was a motion she had practiced 1,000 times, a motion she could do in her sleep. But her body would not obey. Her arm was frozen, locked in place as if held by an invisible force. And then it happened. The silence inside her, the empty grave where her wolf had been buried for 15 years, erupted. It was not a gentle awakening, but a violent, desperate explosion. Her wolf, the traumatized creature she had believed was dead, tore through the barriers of suppression with the force of a hurricane. Images flooded her mind, overlapping with the present. She was 7 years old again, small and terrified, watching Margrave drag away the Omega child she had tried to protect. She felt the silver collar burning her neck, the years of pain every time her wolf tried to surface, the desperate retreat into nothingness as survival. But now her wolf was not retreating. Now her wolf was screaming, howling, throwing its entire traumatized being against her will with a primal command that shook her to her core. No, not him, never him, mine. Protect, protect, protect. The blade was not aimed at a target anymore. It was aimed at her mate, and her wolf would rather die, would rather tear her mind apart than allow this to happen. Kira's vision swam. Her hand trembled violently. The scent of pine and winter air was overwhelming, a comforting blanket and a terrifying cage. He was her mate. The impossible, ludicrous truth slammed into her with the force of a physical blow. The Alpha King was her mate, and her wolf, her broken, traumatized wolf that had been silent for 15 years, had surfaced not to help her kill, but to prevent it. A choked, anguished sound escaped her lips, something between a sob and a growl. Her entire body began to shake as years of suppressed wolf consciousness flooded her mind, as protective instinct warred with her mission, as 15 years of trauma processed in seconds. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The blade slipped from her nerveless fingers and clattered to the plush rug with a soft thud. At the sound, Marcus Stone went still. He didn't startle or jump. He simply set down his quill. Slowly, deliberately, he turned in his chair to face her. His storm-gray eyes met hers, and there was no surprise in them, no fear, only deep, weary sadness and something that looked almost like validation, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. He saw the blade on the floor. He saw the war raging in her eyes, the tears tracking paths through the grime on her cheeks, the way she was shaking like a leaf in a storm. He saw her collapsing against the wall, sliding down to sit with her knees drawn up, arms wrapped around herself, hyperventilating. He saw her, not as Anya the servant, but as Kira the assassin, the broken Omega whose own traumatized soul was now her enemy. Marcus rose slowly from his chair, his movements careful and non-threatening. He crossed to a small table, poured a glass of water, and approached cautiously. He knelt a few feet away, not invading her space, and set the glass within her reach. "Breathe," he said quietly, his voice a low, calm rumble. "Slowly. You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." Kira couldn't process his words. Her mind was fragmenting under the onslaught of her wolf's presence, 15 years of silence breaking all at once. She was 7 years old and 32 simultaneously. She was the terrified child and the hardened assassin. She was drowning. Marcus waited, patient, letting her fight through the panic attack. He didn't touch her, didn't push, just maintained his calm presence. Slowly, gradually, her breathing evened out. The shaking subsided to tremors. She reached for the water with a hand that still shook and drank, the cool liquid helping to ground her. "I was wondering when you would finally make your move," Marcus said, his voice holding no condemnation, only profound, unsettling understanding. "I've known you were here to kill me since Fenrir reported his concerns 2 days ago. I've been watching you watch me ever since." Kira's head snapped up, her moss-green eyes wide with shock. "You knew," she whispered hoarsely. "For 2 days, yes. I knew you were an assassin. What I didn't know, what I only confirmed tonight when you touched my chair, was that you are my mate." He said it simply, as statement of fact. "My wolf recognized your scent the moment you entered my citadel. It has been restless, drawn to you, and I didn't understand why until tonight. The bond confirmed what my wolf already knew." Kira stared at him, her mind struggling to process. "Then why didn't you have me arrested, executed? Why let me get this close?" Because my wolf would not allow me to harm you, Marcus said honestly. Even before I understood the bond, it refused. And I was curious. You hesitated. For days you had opportunities to strike and you didn't take them. I wanted to understand why. He paused, his gray eyes searching her face. Now I know. Your wolf was protecting me all along, even buried as deep as it was. The bond works both ways, Kira. Your wolf recognized me, just as mine recognized you. The sound of her name on his lips sent a shiver through her. How do you know my name? I don't, he admitted. But Anya didn't seem right for you. Tell me your real name. She hesitated, her jaw tight. Giving him her name felt like giving him a piece of her soul, a final surrender. But what else was there to do? She was caught, her purpose shattered, her very being in rebellion against her. Kira, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kira Voss. Kira, he repeated, and the name sounded right in his deep voice. My wolf will not let me harm you, Kira. And it seems yours has returned the favor, despite whatever trauma kept it silent all these years. He gestured to the space between them. So we find ourselves at an impasse. The sheer absurdity of the situation washed over her, an assassin and her target, bound by a fate neither had asked for, sitting on the floor of a quiet study while the rest of the castle slept. Marcus stood and moved to the blade on the floor. He bent down, and his hand closed around the hilt. Immediately his jaw tightened, his hand trembling as the silver coating began to burn his palm. But he didn't drop it, didn't show weakness beyond that involuntary tremor. He held it out to her, hilt first, his hand shaking with pain. You dropped this. Kira stared at the knife as if it were a venomous snake. The thought of touching it, of taking it back, was abhorrent now. Her wolf snarled at the idea, a sound she could feel reverberating in her chest. She shook her head. I can't, she said, her voice raw. I know, Marcus said gently. He set the blade carefully on his desk, then returned to sit across from her, flexing his burned hand. She saw the red mark forming on his palm where the silver had touched skin. You must have nerves of steel to carry this every day, he said, his voice strained. Or a wolf too weak to feel much pain from it, she replied bitterly. I've carried it since I was 16. You build tolerance, or you learn to work through the burn. Your hand will take hours to heal instead of minutes. Silver burns worse the stronger your wolf is. He nodded, accepting the information. Kira, I need you to understand something. The bond between us is real. My wolf is howling for its mate right now. It wants to claim you, to protect you, to never let you out of its sight. Her own wolf echoed the sentiment with a powerful surge of agreement, of yearning so strong it made her chest ache. But the woman I see before me, he continued, his gaze unwavering, is not a possession to be claimed. You are a warrior. You came here with a purpose. I will not force you to accept this bond. I will not make you my prisoner. He leaned forward slightly, his expression intense but not threatening. So here's the truth, and I won't lie to you. You can't leave. Not really. If you tried to walk away from me now, both our wolves would drive us mad. Rejected mate bonds cause insanity within months, death within a year. That's not folklore, it's documented medical fact. So you're trapped, Kira, and so am I. I didn't choose this either. I didn't ask the moon goddess to send me an assassin as my mate. But she did, and now we both have to live with consequences neither of us wanted. His brutal honesty was like a slap and a relief all at once. He wasn't pretending this was a fairy tale romance. He was naming it for what it was, a biological trap they were both caught in. So here's the only real choice I can offer you, Marcus said quietly. It's not whether you stay or go, because we both know you can't leave. The choice is this. Do you fight the bond every single day, hating me for the cage it creates, making both our lives miserable? Or do you choose to make this partnership into something worth having? You decide what kind of captivity this is, a prison or a partnership. I can't give you freedom from the bond, but I can give you freedom within it. Kira stared at him, and part of her hated him for naming it honestly. Captivity, not a gift, but a cage. But another part of her, the part that had been alone and afraid her entire life, recognized the offer for what it was. He was acknowledging the trap and offering to make it bearable. "What does partnership mean?" she asked carefully. "You tell me," he said. "What do you need to not feel like a prisoner?" She thought about it, her assassin's mind calculating angles, leverage, terms of negotiation. "My own quarters, not hidden away as your secret, but not paraded as your mate until I'm ready. No alpha commands, ever, for any reason. The bond stays surface level, recognition stage only, until I choose to deepen it if I ever do. And I want purpose. I don't know how to be someone's mate. I only know how to hunt. Let me hunt your enemies. Let me be useful." Marcus considered each term carefully, his expression thoughtful. Then he nodded. "Agreed. All of it. Your own suite in the royal wing with privacy and space. I'll announce the bond to those who need to know, but will control how and when it becomes public knowledge. You decide when you're ready for that. I swear on my honor as Alpha King, I will never use a command on you, not even if I think it's for your protection. The bond stays at recognition stage unless you explicitly ask to deepen it. And as for purpose, the people who sent you are still out there. Help me find them. Help me root out the rot in my own kingdom. Be my sword and shield, Kira Voss." He extended his hand, not as a king to a subject, but palm up, an offering she could refuse. "Partnership, not ownership. If I ever make you feel like a possession instead of a person, you call me on it. I'm going to make mistakes, because I've never had a mate before, and my wolf's instincts are going to push me toward controlling alpha nonsense. You have permission to tell me when I'm being an ass." Despite everything, despite the trauma and fear and impossible situation, a ghost of a smile touched her lips. There was something darkly amusing about an alpha king giving her permission to call out his mistakes. She looked at his outstretched hand, the burn mark from her blade still red on his palm, then back to his face. Those storm-gray eyes held no deception, only deep, resonant sincerity and a vulnerability she never would have expected. He was just as caught in this as she was. Slowly, hesitantly, she lifted her hand. The air between them crackled with tension. Her fingers trembled as she placed her hand in his. His skin was warm despite the burn, his grip firm and gentle as he closed his fingers around hers. The moment their skin touched, the bond flared, a white-hot current of energy that seared through them both, warm and bright and terrifying. It wasn't complete, they were still at recognition stage, but it was real and undeniable. In that moment, she was no longer just an assassin, and he was no longer just her target. They were something more, something terrifying and fragile and utterly inescapable. "Partnership," she agreed, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. Marcus helped her to her feet, his hand still holding hers, and led her through the hidden passages of the royal wing to a suite she had never seen before. It was not the opulent royal chambers, but a smaller, more defensible space with thick walls, a single entrance, and a balcony overlooking the moonlit gardens. The furnishings were simple but well made. A large bed, a desk, a sitting area, and a weapons rack that was currently empty. "This was my mother's room before she became queen," Marcus said quietly. "After she died, I kept it maintained but empty. It's yours now if you want it. Private, secure, and no one will enter without your permission." Kira looked around the space, her assassin's mind automatically cataloging exits, sightlines, defensive positions. It was a good room, well designed for someone who needed to feel safe. "Thank you," she said, the words feeling strange on her tongue. She couldn't remember the last time she had thanked anyone for anything. "Rest," Marcus said, moving toward the door. "We'll talk more in the morning. There's much to discuss." He paused at the threshold, looking back at her. Kira, for what it's worth, I'm glad the moon goddess sent you to me, even under these circumstances. Sleep well. He left, closing the door softly behind him, and she heard him speaking in low tones to someone outside. A moment later, she sensed the presence of guards taking up position in the corridor. Not to keep her in, she realized, but to keep others out. She was no longer a servant, no longer just an assassin. She was something new, something undefined, and the only chain binding her was the invisible, unbreakable tether of the mate bond. Kira moved to the balcony, the cool night air a balm on her heated skin. Below, the garden was a maze of silver and shadow. She could easily scale the wall, slip past the guards, and be gone. The thought was a fleeting temptation. But the moment it formed, a sharp, aching pang echoed through her chest, and her wolf whimpered in distress. Leaving would hurt. It would be a wound that would never heal. Not for her, and not for him. She could feel it now, a faint, distant echo of his emotions through their new connection. He was weary, burdened, but beneath it all, there was something that felt like hope. Over the following days, Kira settled into a strange new rhythm. Marcus kept his word about everything. She had her own quarters, her privacy respected absolutely. He introduced her to his inner circle as a security consultant brought in to address the assassination threat. And while some raised eyebrows at an Omega in such a role, none dared question their king openly. She met with Marcus each morning in his private study, where they discussed strategy, reviewed intelligence, and planned her investigation into who had hired her. These meetings became something she looked forward to, not just for the work, but for him. She watched the way his brow furrowed when he concentrated, the way he listened to her ideas with genuine respect, the way he sometimes smiled at her observations. A rare, transforming expression that made him look years younger. She noticed how he always ensured there was tea prepared the way she liked it, how he never crowded her space, how he asked her opinion on matters of state as if her perspective genuinely mattered to him. Through the bond, she felt his constant, steady presence. It was like a warm ember in her chest, never intrusive but always there. She could sense his general emotional state, stress, determination, occasional amusement, and she found it oddly comforting rather than invasive. Her wolf had settled into cautious contentment, no longer the traumatized creature constantly on the edge of retreat. It was present, watchful, protective, and utterly devoted to Marcus in a way that both frustrated and touched Kira's human side. One afternoon, a week after the failed assassination, Marcus took her to the training yards. "If you're going to be my shield," he said, "we should spar. I want to see what you can do." The training yard was empty, cleared at his order. He stripped off his formal tunic, leaving him in a simple linen shirt and leather breeches, and picked up a practice sword. Kira selected twin daggers, their weight familiar and comforting in her hands. "Don't hold back," she warned him. "I won't break." His smile was wolfish. "I was about to say the same to you." They circled each other, and then Marcus moved. He was fast, faster than she expected for someone his size, and his technique was flawless. But Kira was faster. She was a shadow, a whisper, moving around his strikes with fluid grace, her daggers seeking openings in his defense. He blocked, parried, countered, and she could see the moment he stopped treating her like someone fragile and started treating her like a worthy opponent. The respect in his eyes made something warm bloom in her chest. They fought for 20 minutes, neither gaining clear advantage, both pushing the other, testing limits. Finally, Kira saw her opening. She feinted left, dropped low, and swept his legs out from under him. He went down hard, and she was on him in an instant, dagger pressed to his throat, her body pinning his. They were both breathing hard, faces inches apart. "Yield?" she asked, her voice slightly breathless. His storm-gray eyes locked on hers, and she saw something in them that made her breath catch. Not defeat, not even surprise. Admiration, desire, wonder. "Never," he said softly, but he didn't move to throw her off. "You're magnificent." The moment stretched between them, charged with something more than just the bond. Kira became acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched, of the heat of his skin, of the way he was looking at her like she was something precious and dangerous and utterly captivating. Her wolf purred its approval, wanting her to close the distance, to claim this moment. Slowly, she pulled back and stood, offering him her hand. He took it, and she helped him to his feet. "You fight like you were born to it," Marcus said, still slightly breathless. "Where did you train?" "Everywhere and nowhere," Kira replied. "The Syndicate doesn't have formal training grounds. You learn by doing, by surviving. The ones who don't learn fast enough don't survive." His expression darkened. "They took a child and turned her into a weapon." "They took a broken Omega no one else wanted and gave her purpose," Kira corrected, though there was no heat in her words. "I'm not defending them, but I won't pretend I was stolen from some happy life. I was surviving in an Omega house where I was punished for having a wolf. The Syndicate offered me a way out." Marcus stepped closer, his hand reaching up to cup her cheek. The gesture was gentle, asking permission, and Kira found herself leaning into the touch. "You deserved better," he said quietly. "You deserved safety, kindness, the chance to be a child. You deserved to have your wolf nurtured, not tortured into silence." The sincerity in his voice, the genuine anger on her behalf for injustices long past, made Kira's throat tight. No one had ever been angry for her before. No one had ever cared what she deserved. "I have it now," she found herself saying. "Safety, kindness, the chance to let my wolf heal. You gave me that, Marcus. This partnership, it's more than I ever thought I could have." His thumb stroked her cheekbone, and the tenderness of the gesture made her chest ache. "You're not just my partner in duty, Kira. These past days, getting to know you, watching you work, seeing your brilliant mind in action, listening to you talk about strategy and laugh at Fenrir's terrible jokes, I'm not just bound to you by fate. I'm falling in love with you by choice." The words hung in the air between them. Falling in love, by choice. Not just the bond, but him choosing to love her, choosing to see her as more than just a fated mate. Kira's heart hammered in her chest. She had never let anyone close enough to love her, had never believed herself worthy of love. But standing here, with Marcus looking at her like she hung the moon, with the bond singing between them, with her wolf practically glowing with contentment, she realized she wanted this. Wanted him, not just because the bond demanded it, but because he was good and kind and strong, and he saw worth in her that she'd never seen in herself. "I don't know if what I feel is love yet," she said honestly. "I don't know what love feels like, but I know that I think about you constantly. I know that your smile makes me feel warm. I know that when you're stressed, I want to fix it. I know that the thought of you in danger makes my wolf absolutely feral. Maybe that's the beginning of love. Maybe that's me falling too." Marcus's expression transformed, joy and wonder lighting his features. "That's more than enough," he said. "We have time, Kira. We have all the time in the world to figure this out together." He leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and pressed his forehead to hers. "May I kiss you?" Her answer was to rise on her toes and close the distance between them. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, a question and an answer. Then it deepened, became something more urgent, more necessary. Kira felt the bond flare between them, felt his love and desire and desperate need, and she felt her own answering emotions rising to meet his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. "I want to court you properly," he said. "Not just rely on the bond, but court you like you deserve. Let me show you what it means to be cherished." Kira's smile was small, but genuine. "I've never been courted before. I don't know the rules." "Neither do I," Marcus admitted with a soft laugh. "I've been too busy being a king to have time for romance. We'll figure it out together, make our own rules. And he did court her. Over the following weeks, Marcus showed Kira a kind of attention she'd never experienced. He brought her books he thought she'd enjoy, brought her to the royal garden in the early mornings to watch the sunrise together, taught her to dance in the privacy of his study with no one watching but them, shared stories of his childhood and listened with rapt attention to the few safe memories she was willing to share of hers. He never pushed for more than she was willing to give, never demanded anything, just offered pieces of himself and created space for her to offer pieces back when she was ready. They worked together during the days, planning her investigation into the conspiracy. Kira discovered that Marcus was brilliant at strategy, could see patterns and connections that even she sometimes missed. They complemented each other perfectly, her tactical mind and his strategic vision, her ability to see threats in the shadows and his understanding of the political landscape. One evening, 3 weeks after the failed assassination, Marcus took Kira on horseback beyond the castle grounds to a clearing in the forest. It was beautiful. A small meadow surrounded by towering pines, a clear stream running through it, the ground covered in soft moss and late-blooming wildflowers. "This was my mother's favorite place," Marcus said quietly. "She would come here when being queen became too much, when she needed to remember who she was before the crown. She brought me here when I was young and told me that no matter how heavy the responsibilities became, I should never forget that I was more than just a king." He turned to face Kira fully. "I come here sometimes when I need to ground myself, to remember what matters, and I wanted to share it with you because you've become what matters most to me." Kira looked around the clearing, feeling the peace of the place, understanding why Marcus's mother had loved it. "It's perfect," she said softly. "Thank you for bringing me here." "There's something I want to ask you," Marcus said, and there was a vulnerability in his voice that made her look at him carefully. "You've agreed to the recognition bond, and I'm grateful for that. But I want more, Kira. Not now, not until you're ready, but someday. I want to offer you the acceptance bond, the next stage where we can feel each other's emotions more clearly, where the connection deepens. I want you to know that I'm not just accepting you because fate chose you for me. I'm choosing you because of who you are." He took both her hands in his. "I'm not asking you to decide now. I just want you to know that when you're ready, I'll be here, ready to deepen our bond, ready to love you more fully, ready to be yours in every way that matters." Kira felt her chest tighten with emotion. He was offering her choice, not demanding, not assuming, but asking, treating her autonomy as sacred even when the bond between them was undeniable. "Ask me," she said quietly. Marcus blinked in surprise. "What?" "Ask me now," Kira said, her voice stronger. "I'm ready, Marcus. These weeks with you, getting to know you, watching how you lead, how you treat people, how you've treated me with such care and respect. I'm ready to choose this, to choose you. Not because I have to, but because I want to." The joy that flooded his expression was breathtaking. "Kira Voss, will you accept the bond between us to acceptance stage? Will you let me feel your heart as you feel mine? Will you choose me as I choose you?" "Yes," she said simply. "I choose you, Marcus Stone. I choose this bond. I choose us." They sealed it right there in the clearing, hands clasped, foreheads pressed together, speaking the ritual words that deepened the mate bond from recognition to acceptance. The moment the words were spoken, the bond between them flared brilliant and warm. Suddenly, Kira could feel his emotions more clearly. Not just vague impressions, but distinct feelings. His overwhelming love, his fierce protectiveness, his pride in her, his joy at her acceptance, his desire for her that he'd been carefully keeping in check. And he could feel hers, her growing love that was becoming undeniable, her trust in him that she'd never given anyone, her fierce protectiveness that matched his own, her wonder at being chosen and cherished. "I love you," Marcus said, the words spilling out like he couldn't hold them back any longer. "I love you so much, Kira. You are extraordinary. I love you too, Kira found herself saying, and realized it was true. She loved him, this strong, kind, brilliant man who had looked at an assassin sent to kill him and offered partnership instead of punishment, who courted her with patience and tenderness, who made her feel safe enough to let her traumatized wolf heal, who saw worth in her that she'd never seen in herself. She loved him. They kissed in the clearing under the stars, and this time when Marcus pulled her close, when his hands tangled in her hair and hers clutched at his shoulders, there was no hesitation, no fear, just desire and love and the rightness of two souls finally coming together. Come back to the castle with me, Marcus murmured against her lips. Stay with me tonight, not in your quarters or mine, but together. Let me show you what it means to be loved, Kira. Let me worship you the way you deserve. Yes, she breathed, and they rode back together through the moonlit forest, the bond singing between them with anticipation and joy. That night, Marcus made love to her with a tenderness and passion that brought tears to her eyes. He treated her body like something precious, something sacred, learning what made her gasp and sigh, giving her pleasure she'd never imagined possible. And when she touched him in return, when she showed him with hands and mouth and body how much she wanted him, needed him, loved him, his control shattered, and they came together in a joining that was both physical and spiritual, the bond between them blazing bright. Afterward, tangled together in his bed, Kira felt her wolf settle into perfect contentment. Her wolf trusted Marcus completely now, trusted his wolf, trusted the safety and love he offered. It was still healing from childhood trauma, but it was present and growing stronger every day. I never thought I could have this, Kira whispered into the darkness. Never thought I deserved it. You deserve everything, Marcus said fiercely, holding her closer. You deserve love and safety and happiness. You deserve a partner who sees your worth. You deserve a life that's more than just survival. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you have all of it. The next morning, they began the investigation in earnest. Kira needed to find who had hired her, and Marcus needed to root out the conspiracy that threatened his kingdom. They worked together, Kira's tactical brilliance and Marcus's strategic mind, forming a formidable partnership. Kira decided her first move would be to return to the payment site in Serpent's Pass, where the Blackwood Syndicate had received payment for her contract. The location might hold clues about who had hired her. Marcus agreed, but insisted she take Fenrir with her. I trust you completely, he said, but I'll rest easier knowing you have backup. Fenrir is loyal, skilled, and he understands you lead the mission. Kira agreed. Having a partner could be an asset if the partner understood the chain of command. They spent a day preparing, and that evening, Marcus came to her quarters carrying a wooden box. I have something for you, he said, setting it on her table. Inside was a set of throwing knives, perfectly balanced and beautifully crafted, along with a short sword and several daggers. All were steel with minimal silver content, designed for a shifter to wield without discomfort. You can't go into danger unarmed, he said quietly. These were my mother's. She was a warrior before she became queen, trained in close combat and knife work. They've been in storage since she died. I think she would have liked you. Kira ran her fingers over the weapons, feeling their perfect balance. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. This means more than you know. The next morning, Kira and Fenrir left at dawn. The journey to Serpent's Pass took 2 hard days of riding, followed by a day of hiking into the mountains. When they reached the payment drop site, Kira found evidence immediately. Discolored earth where blood had soaked in weeks ago, struggle marks, and most importantly, wedged deep in a crack in the rock face, a small leather pouch containing a carved jade token bearing the seal of a rearing stallion over crossed swords. That's the sigil of House Valerius, Fenrir said grimly. Lord Valerius of the Southern Reaches. But Kira's assassin mind was already working through layers of deception. The token felt too obvious, too perfectly incriminating. She examined it closely and found microscopic tool marks inconsistent with official house seals. "This is a forgery," she said. "Someone wants us to think Valerius hired me." Before she could investigate further, a sharp whistle cut through the air, followed by the thrum of a bowstring. Kira's instincts screamed danger, and she tackled Fenrir to the ground as an arrow embedded itself where his head had been. They were under attack. Shadowclaw warriors, at least a dozen, emerged on the ridges above. They'd been waiting. Someone had known Kira and Fenrir would come here. A spy, a leak in Marcus's inner circle. Kira and Fenrir fought their way toward a narrow ravine, arrows whizzing past them, one grazing Kira's thigh. They plunged into thorny brush that tore at their skin but provided cover, the Shadowclaws in pursuit. When they burst out of the ravine into a forested clearing, they ran straight into another group of warriors. Surrounded. Trapped. Fenrir stood back to back with Kira, his axe ready. "It was an honor serving with you," he said quietly. Kira didn't reply. Her focus was absolute, her daggers ready. They had threatened her pack. They had threatened her mate's kingdom. They would pay. Then a sound split the air that froze everyone. A howl of pure, unadulterated fury. An Alpha King's howl, and it was close. Hope surged through Kira. Marcus. But how? From the shadows emerged a monstrous gray wolf, larger than any shifter Kira had ever seen, its fur the color of a storm, eyes burning with silver fire. The Alpha King's wolf crashed into the circle of warriors like a force of nature, and the Shadowclaws broke and fled. The massive wolf padded toward Kira, his silver eyes filled with desperate concern as he scented her injuries. He let out a soft whine when he found the gash on her thigh. Kira buried her fingers in his thick fur, and through the acceptance bond, she felt the overwhelming torrent of his emotions. His terror when he'd sensed her fear, his desperate race to reach her, his explosive relief at finding her alive, his fury at those who had dared harm her. Later, after Marcus shifted back and they made rough camp, he explained. "I felt your fear through the bond," he said. "The acceptance bond shouldn't allow that across such distance, but I felt it anyway. My wolf went insane." He showed her his hand, deep bite marks still healing. "I forced a partial claiming. I used alpha blood magic, a forbidden technique, to create a temporary connection strong enough to sense your location. It's a violation of our agreement about the bond. I had no right to do it without your consent, but I couldn't—" He stopped, his voice breaking. "I couldn't lose you." Kira took his injured hand in hers. "You violated our agreement to save my life," she said quietly. "You broke protocol because you love me." "Yes," he said, "and I know that doesn't excuse it." "I'm not angry," she interrupted. "I'm grateful. You saved me, Marcus. You and your wolves fought through enemies to reach me. I'm beginning to understand that the moon goddess knew what she was doing when she sent me to you." She looked up at him. "I don't know if I'm ready for the full mating bond yet, but I know that when I thought I was going to die in that clearing, my last thought was regret that I'd never see you again. That has to mean something." "It means everything," he said, pulling her close. They returned to the Citadel 3 days later, and Kira immediately began investigating the spy who had leaked their mission. She needed to be methodical, careful. If the conspirators knew she suspected them, they might flee or destroy evidence. She decided to investigate Lord Elmsworth, Marcus's most trusted advisor, whose position managing Crown lands would benefit most from Valerius's removal. She waited until mid-morning, when Elmsworth would be in council, then picked the lock to his private quarters. Inside, she found it, a hidden panel in the wall containing a locked box. Inside the box was damning evidence, correspondence with Gregor Shadowclaw discussing territorial concessions, a ledger showing payments to the Blackwood Syndicate, records of suspicious lunar herb purchases, and a small carved jade seal matching the forged token from Serpent's Pass. But most damning was a journal detailing years of growing resentment about bloodline purity, bitter complaints about Marcus's common-born mother, and explicit plans to have Marcus eliminated and replaced with a more traditional king. The final entry made Kira's blood run cold. The Omega whore has taken a position as advisor. This is an abomination. She must be eliminated. I have informed G of her investigation and arranged an ambush. Elmsworth had orchestrated everything, had hired her to kill Marcus, had framed Valerius, had sent Shadowclaw warriors to kill her, all because of fanatical beliefs about bloodline purity and rank. Kira photographed the evidence, then carefully replaced everything. Elmsworth couldn't know he'd been discovered yet. As she finished, she heard voices in the corridor. Elmsworth returning early with Alara, the young servant assigned to Kira. Kira dove under the bed, pressing herself flat. Through the narrow gap, she watched as Elmsworth spoke to Alara. "Your reports on the Omega's movements have been most useful," his grandfatherly voice now sinister. "I did overhear her and Fenrir discussing the Serpent's Pass mission," Alara said nervously. "I reported immediately as instructed." "Unfortunately, the king's intervention saved her," Elmsworth said coldly. "Continue to attend to her. If an opportunity arises to eliminate her quietly, poison in her tea perhaps, you will take it." "I can't kill someone," Alara's voice broke. "Please, my lord." "You will do as you're told, or your family suffers the consequences," Elmsworth snapped. "Your father's debts are substantial. I could have him imprisoned, your siblings sold to labor camps. Is that what you want?" Alara was the spy, but she was a victim, coerced through debt and threats. Kira waited until they left, then slipped out and went directly to Marcus. In the secured war room, with only Fenrir guarding the door, Kira told Marcus everything. He listened in silence, his expression growing darker, and when she finished, he stood abruptly and paced, his hands clenched into fists. "He was my father's best friend," Marcus said, his voice rough with betrayal. "I've known him my entire life, and all this time he believed I was an abomination because my mother was common-born. All this time, he was planning my death." He turned to face Kira, his eyes blazing. "He ordered your death multiple times. He orchestrated the ambush, and now he's ordered Alara to poison you." He crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. "I could have lost you so many times because of him." "But you didn't," Kira interrupted. "I'm here. I'm safe. And now we know the truth. We can stop him." They planned carefully. They would proceed with Valerius's arrest as planned, presenting the forged token as evidence. Elmsworth would think his plan was working, but during the tribunal, they would reveal the forgery and present the real evidence from Elmsworth's quarters, exposing him publicly with proof he couldn't deny. They would also quietly arrest Alara in protective custody and offer her immunity in exchange for testimony. The tribunal was called for the next day. The council chamber filled with all 7 members plus high-ranking nobles. Valerius entered last, confused and arrogant. Kira stood in the shadows, watching. Through the bond, she felt Marcus's controlled anger, his determination. Marcus called the tribunal to order. "Lords and lady, I have called you here to address a conspiracy against the crown. 3 weeks ago, an assassin infiltrated this castle with a contract to kill me. Through investigation, we have traced the conspiracy. He presented the jade token recovered from Serpent's Pass, bearing Valerius's seal." Valerius shot to his feet, his face flushing. "This is preposterous. I would never— Sit down," Marcus commanded with alpha authority. Valerius sat, shaking. "However," Marcus continued, "this token has been revealed to be a forgery." He gestured to Kira, who stepped forward and presented her analysis of the inconsistencies. "If the token is a forgery," Lord Elmsworth asked with carefully manufactured confusion, "then who actually hired the assassin?" Marcus looked directly at Elmsworth. "An excellent question. One that requires examining who would benefit most from Valerius being implicated and removed." He presented the real jade seal found in Elmsworth's quarters, along with the correspondence, the ledger, the lunar herb records, and pages from Elmsworth's journal detailing his bloodline purity obsession and plans to have Marcus killed. The council read in stunned silence. Elmsworth's face went pale. "These are lies," he said, voice rising. "Fabrications. I have served this kingdom faithfully for 40 years. I was your father's closest friend, Marcus. How can you believe?" "Because I've also heard testimony from your spy," Marcus said coldly. "Ilara, the servant you coerced into spying through threats against her family. The servant you ordered to poison my mate." At the word mate, shocked murmurs ran through the chamber. Kira stepped forward to stand beside Marcus, and he took her hand publicly. "Ilara has provided full confession," Marcus continued. "Your network of spies, your communications with Shadowclaw, your order for her to poison Kira just days ago. She's detailed your fanatical beliefs and your stated desire to see me removed and replaced with a more traditional king." Elmsworth's control finally cracked. His grandfatherly facade fell away, revealing the fanatic beneath. "Yes," he shouted, standing abruptly. "I ordered it all, and I was right to do so. Your father weakened this kingdom by marrying a common beta. You've weakened it further by taking an omega as your mate." His face twisted with rage and disgust as he pointed at Kira. "Omegas are meant to serve, to submit, to know their place, not to stand beside kings, to advise councils. Your acceptance of this corruption will destroy everything our ancestors built." "Everything our ancestors built," Marcus said with cold fury, "includes systems of oppression that have no place in a just kingdom. My father was a great king precisely because he saw worth in people beyond their rank. I will be the same. Lord Elmsworth, you are guilty of high treason, conspiracy to murder, collaboration with enemy forces, and corruption of innocents. Arrest him." Elmsworth lunged toward the table, reaching for something concealed there, but Kira was faster. She crossed the distance in a blur, disarmed him, and had him restrained on the ground in seconds. The council watched in stunned silence as the omega they dismissed proved her worth. As Elmsworth was dragged away, still ranting about bloodlines and tradition, Marcus turned to Valerius. "You are cleared of regicide conspiracy. However, you did hire the syndicate for a different contract. Evidence was presented of Valerius's plot against Lord Harrow. Your lands and titles are forfeit. You are hereby exiled. If you return, you will be executed." Then Marcus addressed the full assembly. "Let this serve as a lesson. Treason will not be tolerated, and any who believe rank determines worth, that omegas or betas are somehow lesser. You are welcome to join Valerius in exile." He pulled Kira to his side, his arm around her waist. "Kira Voss is my mate, chosen by the moon goddess and accepted by my heart. She is also the finest intelligence operative this kingdom has seen. She will serve as shield of the king, head of security and intelligence, with full council authority. Will any challenge this?" Lord Harrow stood first. "I support this. Shield Kira saved my life by identifying the threat against me. If the moon goddess chose to bind her to our king, who are we to question divine wisdom?" Lady Meredith stood next. "I support this as well. Shield Kira's work has protected us all." One by one, the remaining council members voiced support or acceptance. Marcus concluded, "We have much work to repair the damage and strengthen our defenses against Shadowclaw. We begin today." That evening, a private ceremony was held in the royal garden, with just Marcus, Kira, Fenrir, and a priestess of the moon goddess. The priestess blessed their mate bond formally. "The moon goddess works in mysterious ways, child," the old priestess said to Kira. "She sent you to him as death, and you became his salvation. That is the nature of fate and true bonds." Over the following months, Kira settled into her role as Shield of the King with fierce competence. She restructured castle security, established intelligence networks, and personally vetted everyone in the royal wing. Conspiracies were identified and neutralized before they could develop. Shadowclaw incursions were detected early and repelled. The castle had never been safer. Her relationship with Marcus deepened with each passing day. They were rarely apart, a true partnership in every sense. They worked together, ate together, walked the battlements at dusk, sharing everything from state matters to quiet hopes and fears. The council's initial resistance gave way to respect as her work protected them repeatedly. The common people, when they learned their king had chosen an omega mate, had mixed reactions at first. But Kira's visible competence and the king's obvious happiness won many over. She became known as the Shadow Shield, the king's protector who moved unseen and struck before enemies knew she was there. Other Omegas looked to her with inspiration, proof that rank didn't have to define capability. Lord Elmsworth was tried for high treason, found guilty unanimously, and executed quietly. His lands were stripped, his name erased from the rolls of honored counselors. Ilara, freed from her debts and given a position in Kira's intelligence network, became one of her most loyal agents, grateful for the second chance. 6 months after the tribunal, on a night when the full moon hung heavy and silver, Marcus took Kira back to the clearing in the forest. They shifted together and ran as they had many times before, but this night felt different. Sacred. When they shifted back, Marcus pulled her into his arms. "I love you, Kira Voss," he said. "You've given me partnership, protection, purpose beyond duty. You've made me whole in ways I never knew I was broken. Will you complete our bond? Will you accept me as your mate fully for all our days?" Kira looked up at him, this Alpha King, who had seen worth in a broken Omega assassin, who had offered partnership instead of ownership, who had loved her despite and because of everything she was. Her wolf was howling its agreement. Her heart was full, and she had no fear, no hesitation, no doubt. "Yes," she said simply. "I choose you, Marcus Stone. I choose this bond, this partnership, this life. Make me yours completely, as you are mine." They sealed the full mating bond that night under the moon, with claiming bites exchanged, with love spoken and shown, with their souls finally, completely joining into one. The bond that had started with recognition, deepened to acceptance, now became complete mating. Kira felt her wolf settle into perfect contentment, fully healed, fully whole, fully safe. Marcus felt his own wolf finally complete, finally at peace, finally with its true mate. They were no longer two separate beings bound by fate. They were partners, mates, two halves of one soul, the Alpha King and his Shadow Shield. And they were home. The assassin who had come to bring death had instead brought life, healing, and hope. And the king who should have executed the threat instead found his salvation. The moon goddess, in her infinite wisdom, had known exactly what she was doing when she sent Kira Voss to Stonefang Citadel with a silver blade and a broken soul. And she smiled as two of her children finally found the happiness they deserved.